He's James Collins.
He is Alec Cranston, and this is the
Matter of Facts Podcast.
The Matter of Facts Podcast brings you the unsung heroes, the unsung stories, news and happenings from across our wonderful city that you maybe thought happened but didn't quite know the truth behind.
And get you all in the loop on what's going on, what's to come, and what can we be prepared for.
It's May, it's getting warm, it's spring, it's Matter of Facts!
Ooh, that gave me chills.
Ooh, what? I told you I'd do a good one, didn't I?
That gave me chills right down my spine.
Yeah, how are you doing, Alec? Happy May!
I'm doing great. A happy May. It's going to be May. I'm loving May.
May the 4th.
May the 4th be with you.
Oh,
It's today, May the 4th? Oh, it's tomorrow.
I get grumpy because every year Star Wars fans
Star Wars Christmas, I hate
they're
it
the
all.
only person who's ever thought of May the 4th be with you.
I love it.
You know what's the worst is like New Year's Eve when people say, see you next year.
Or the New Year's Day when they say, I haven't seen you since last year.
And you're like, oh, there's some geniuses.
I guarantee you make that joke to your clients.
Well, and where did they get their comedy genius? On Matter of Facts, because we have a comedy genius joining us on today's show.
We do. Super thrilled. We have James Mullinger as a guest today.
He is swinging through. He's here for 2 days and 2 days only, performing in 2 nights. No, yeah.
He's here 2 days. Yuck,
2
yucks,
nights
both
and 2 nights only in Yuck Yucks. But before we do that, how are you, Alec? Wedding's getting closer. You're getting the jitters.
Planning's going good.
Are you wearing a nice white dress?
Yes.
Pure white, I hope.
I have my
pure white dress.
Pure white. I have my I
Pure.
have my iPad here, which has my Insane as the Crane thing on. But as you can see, I get this preferred ads, and it's just all these different suits and stuff because that's all I've been looking up. And
like dinosaur suits, it looks like. And
well, I like the lapel having like a little bit of flair to it, not like because I wear suit jackets for work all the time and stuff. So I gotta take it up a notch for the wedding. I know it's on the beach. So I need a little something. I don't know what color I'm going to do. I'm between colors here.
My main concern about your wedding has been your lapel attire.
Oh, I was
saying to Jen last week, like, we got all these travel plans. You got like, oh, gee, Alec's lapel.
You must. I figured that must keep you up at night.
Very briefly breezing through the normal lingering sections of our podcast, purely because we have a VVIP.
Yes.
A very, very important person. I couldn't figure out what the P was then. I almost said VVIP, very, very important guest, realizing that would be a VIG. But let's go into Insane as the Crane.
Insane as the Crane. Insane as the Crane. Insane as the Crane. Kinda insane like the Crane. Insane as
Today,
the Crane.
Insane as the Crane, we have a Dartmouth, Nova Scotia company that has launched an alcohol vending machine.
Otherwise known as a bar.
It's called Smart Serve, developed by Corey Yantha. He's the CEO of Dispensation Industries, Inc. They have about a small team of 10, and they work closely with an engineering firm as well in Ontario. But they created these alcohol vending machines, and they're pretty cool, and we'll put them in the show notes. But essentially what you do is you go up to the machine, you scan your government ID to confirm your legal drinking age, then you get a facial...
Give it to your kid. Just go down and
then
get
you
me
get
one.
a facial scan to confirm that the photo matches you to provide that second level of authentication.
Okay.
You get scanned, then you complete your purchase. They say it should take about 45 seconds to get your drink. I believe they tested at the MLB All-Star Game in 2022 in LA. Apparently it went well. The machine,
That's an odd proving ground for Halifax-based technology.
I know.
Maybe Haligonians will like it. Let's go to LA and test it on people not from this country who are completely different, a lot more liberal alcohol laws where you can buy booze in a grocery store. Anyway, I get it.
No, I think there's 360 cans. It can fit 360 cans. The Craft Brewers Association of Nova Scotia, the president, Andrew Tanner, he likes it. He thinks it's potentially good for local beer in the local beer industry. I personally think there's because it's just I'm looking at the picture of it now. It's white in color, so there's definitely opportunity for ads and for different local brewers to kind of have maybe some presence on it, so it's kind of theirs maybe, and it's only their beer. I don't know. There was some concerns from the Alcohol and Gaming Department in Nova Scotia saying that further consults and a regulatory review would be considered before any broader implementation of these machines were to occur. They're saying it's important to note that these machines will be required to have dedicated staff to ensure that they're accurate in detecting minors, aka they need a bouncer for these machines.
Well, I agree with controlling the minors. I think, of course,
Yes,
that's
yes.
a big thing. But I got to tell you now, coming from a continent and a country where alcohol laws are very liberal and there is no real issue, aside from billions of dollars of damage every year due to hooliganism. But I'll tell you now, like when I was back home last February, went to a rugby game. I picked a beer up from a street vendor, and I walked from one end of the city to the other on a Saturday morning with families, with kids, drinking a beer. And guess what happened? Absolutely nothing. So I think anything here that brings us a little bit closer to some more liberal, some more flexible, some more reasonable and sensible alcohol consumption cultures and regulations are a good thing. I can't believe they created such a stink about allowing people to drink out on Argyle Street.
Yeah, I know.
Where I grew up, any park on a Saturday afternoon is
Fair game.
families having picnics, dad's having a beer, mother's having a cooler, a wine. Like, this is how it goes. So this is a really good idea. I hope it works, and I hope that people don't create enough stink that we backtrack, because we have a reputation here for putting really progressive, good things that are reasonable in place. And then down the road, somebody finds a reason why it's offensive, it doesn't have longevity, it's not viable, and off it goes. So good luck to these guys, and I hope that they can vend millions
I'd
of
love to
dollars
have see
of
it.
booze.
It'd be great at rinks, be great at theater.
And if you can install it in my office,
I was
too.
going to say,
yeah.
well, in offices as well, it'd be great. A company buys one of those machines, and then there's happy hour. Anyways, that's a quick and dirty Insane as the Crane, just because we have a very important guest today.
And
we
see you
wanna
next time on Matter of Facts. Oh, we're not going that quick.
That's a quick and dirty Insane as the Crane. Put the link in the show notes so you can take a look at it and read through it. We'll keep you posted. I do hope these work out. They are cool-looking machines. So now we are going to shoot right into our next segment, the classic Reddit Roundup.
Reddit Roundup. Haligonians losing their minds over minor inconveniences.
The topic of Reddit today in the R Halifax thread is Facebook Marketplace. It's a post by Armadillo Guy. It's a screenshot. This guy is selling a PS5 3D wireless headset. Cool. I don't know what he's selling it for. No, he has it listed for $70. And then this guy starts with the conversation. His name is Manish. Manish goes, $70? Question mark. And the seller goes, I can do 70. Sure. And then the Manish goes, $50. I'll pick it up soon. And this was like 3 weeks later. And the seller goes, I thought we agreed to $70 several weeks ago. I've already lowered it quite a bit from the original price. And Manish says, okay, thanks for the reply. Then the seller goes, you asked for 70 and I agreed. What happened? And that's the end of the conversation. So this guy started out by saying $70. Like, will you take 70? And the guy goes, yep, I'll take 70. He goes, okay, $50. I'll pick it up soon. It was, so we're getting into Facebook Marketplace. And what's your experience?
It's
with
the
Facebook?
It's the cesspit of the internet.
Brutal. I haven't used it in a long time.
I've sold a Bowflex machine once, a weight machine, and the guy said, before I take it home, I want to do a full workout in your basement to make sure I like it. I once sold a table in London when we lived in Ontario, a huge oak table, weighed about 300 pounds. They showed up in a two girls who combined weight of about 200 pounds, combined height of about 8 feet, showed up with a tiny, pretty much smart car. So I had to tell them to go and find friends and a bigger vehicle, or make friends and get a bigger vehicle. I gave away free patio furniture a couple of years ago, put it on there and said, it's free. I'm not keeping it for you. If the ad is up, it's available. People from Eastern Passage write and say, well, we're not driving from Eastern Passage unless you'll reserve it. I wrote back and said, I'm not putting it back on my deck because you won't come. And they said, well, we will. I said, well, why not come from Eastern Passage and see if it's still there? In the meantime, one of my neighbors wanders down and goes, hey, you giving away a couple of chairs and a table there? And I said, yeah. So he took them. And then lo and behold, about 30 minutes later, the red truck shows up from Eastern Passage, and I start getting threatening text messages from them about the fact they've driven. Guy showed up to buy an old guitar of mine about a year ago, and we had pre-agreed the price. And then he says, I'll give you, it worked out at about 60, 70% of what I wanted, or what we'd agreed to. I'll give it, but I'll take it now. And I said, well, you were always going to take it now anyway because you drove. Yeah. You drove an hour and 10 minutes from the valley to car. I got loads and loads and loads and loads of these stories. I've done this many times, and now my rules are no horse trading at the door. We agree on the price. It's the price you pay. Bring a friend or make a friend because I'm not helping you remove it from my house. And bring the right amount of money, because the other thing people do, if you agree on like $90, they'll bring 520s deliberately, because then you won't have change, and you're not going to make them overpay. So you'll say, give me 80 and we're done. And they
yeah.
further discount. So I know all the tricks.
You've been down that road.
Oh, God, I hate this place.
It's
And I
brutal.
hate Facebook Marketplace. I'm kidding. I love Podstarter.
I just don't. And that's the reason, because there's just so much BS on Facebook Marketplace, and I don't know. I look at it online. I'm not like, who can I trust? And and then on the flip side, people do get scammed when they say, okay, I'll hold it for you for a deposit, and they send deposit.
They do, and there's a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah,
happens.
it happens, and then they go on Facebook and they, unbelievable! If you ever see this person, it's on site. We hate this person, blah blah. And then
But then you look like, why did you send them an e-transfer for $200?
and everyone's like, oh, did you pay a deposit?
And when I click their profile, it was created yesterday, and that person, that's Daniel Craig.
Daniel,
Like that? No, seriously, you go on and you're like, oh, that's literally Tiger Woods is the profile picture, and somebody has somehow sent this individual money.
I guess this Manish guy is he's a regular. He's a known lowballer. Lowballer troll is what Unknown365 described him, and said, let me guess, he gave you a 1-star review and then blocked you. To which he said he did. That's the other thing, is you can get these bad reviews and just it's like I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. Someone gives you a bad review, says terrible experience, and really they're the ones that screwed you over, but they've put that truth out there that they think is true. They've put it out there.
I'm speaking my truth.
Exactly. Now it's up to you to be like, do I give this person the benefit of the doubt, or are they really a shitty seller? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But, people are going to lowball, and it's just not even worth the time. People don't even respond if you have to.
Well, I tell you what, though, the key on this is actually price high. My father-in-law tried to sell a couch, which I think was like left from the old homeowners. It was just in the house when they moved in. He put it on for like $50 because he really wanted to get rid of it. Just wanted to get rid of it one day. Wanted the room that was in for something else. They had like 2 living rooms. Anyway, gets rid of the couch, $50 on Kijiji this was, and everybody who showed up was a problem. Everybody was a problem. Oh, I'll pay $20 after looking at it. I need you to deliver it. All this crap. Anyway, so he ends up increasing the price 5 times to $250. Serious seller emails him within, or contacts him within like an hour, shows up when he says he's going to show up and takes it. So sometimes you have to price high, because if you need someone who has to justify every dollar they own, they're going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Price high, and you actually get more serious people. So a lot of folks think if you want to sell it quickly, the key is to decrease the price. The key is often to increase it, because then you'll appear to a more sensible caliber of person.
Good point. That's our Reddit roundup for today. Facebook Marketplace, it's a cesspool. It's brutal. I like an old-fashioned yard sale. I'm looking forward to doing that this spring, summer in my home for the first time. I have so much stuff to sell, and I know what's going to happen. I'm going to have just like giving it away. Like, it's just $5. But people, that's another thing. People on Facebook Marketplace are selling things for like $5, $10. I won't go down that road about the $5.
I'll do a value village now, which is that you got donated it. It's worth $20, and you selling it for $45. So just be that really high priced yard sale.
Absolutely.
I'll come along. Well, where's the money going? Into the wedding fund? Because I require a tax receipt. So
it will go into the wedding fund, considering a donation. It's going for the wedding fund, or maybe my suit. I don't know.
Oh, very nice. Very
my
nice.
lapels.
Well, we ripped through that. We ripped through that for good reason, because we have a guest today who deserves every minute that he will be sat in the chair.
We do.
He has just arrived through the door, so we should go and shake some hands.
Let's go see
We
him.
should go and do the We Are Not Worthy. Now, you were too young for Wayne's World. Have you seen the Wayne's World movies?
I know what it is. I just haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
You guys are hitting me with all these references today that I don't
So
understand.
just for context, and
Everyone's just
I'll have
aging
to
me
turn
today.
away from the mic here because it's loud, but before we started recording, we introduced Alec to Bill O'Reilly's We'll Do It Live! F it! We'll do it live! He'd never heard We'll
I'd never
Do It
seen it
Live.
before, and it was hilarious.
Now we're throwing in with the Wayne's World references, but let's go and say
do
hello
it.
to our guest. Rarely do we have another Brit in the studio. We have a Brit with us and a living legend, Mr. James Mullinger. Everybody knows him, but we have to read the bio. We have to write and read a bio because it's just what you do on the podcast. So we will formally introduce James Mullinger, who of course you all know. He is a comedic force who made waves in the UK comedy scene before embarking on an inspiring journey that led him right here to Atlantic Canada. Bursting onto the scene in 2005, Mullinger quickly became a standout, sharing stages with comedy legends like Russell Brand and Jerry Seinfeld. But in 2014, he made a bold move, relocating with his family to Atlantic Canada. The decision wasn't just about a change of scenery, it marked a transformative chapter in his career and personal life. Embracing the vibrant culture and welcoming community of the Maritimes, Mullinger dove headfirst into the local comedy scene, injecting fresh energy and humor into every performance. Since then, Mullinger has become a beloved figure in Atlantic Canada, earning accolades and admiration for his comedic talents and his commitment to giving back to the community. From headlining clubs to hosting his own TV series, he showcased the charm and humor of the region to audiences far and wide. But Mullinger's journey isn't just about laughs. It's about finding a place to call home and making a positive impact along the way. Through his performances and charitable efforts, he's become not just a comedian, but also an ambassador for Atlantic Canada, sharing its stories and spirit with the world. Do you approve of that bio?
I have to say,
Do you want that bio?
I want that bio.
Like
please.
$500
Yes,
we can give you the rights.
Absolutely amazing. Was it AI? Did AI do that?
Answer the question,
Sorry,
James.
I've got to go. Nice to meet you, James.
The only reason I asked that is that of late, anytime I've read a bio in like a theatre program or something where they've essentially adapted a variation of what they might have found on my website or on the press release or something, without fail, whenever I say, oh my goodness, that is beautifully written, who did that? The answer is always AI, which is terrifying because it just does prove, which none of us want to know, which is that, yes, artificial intelligence is better than all of us.
Yes, it was AI, but what I'm not telling you is what my prompt was.
Cool, perfect.
What I told AI to do. Yeah.
Well, it was lovely, and thank you, and beautiful words.
We are known for our introductions. We've had some doozies of introductions. So that's
the best is when it's actually wrong and someone says, "No, that's not the bio off my website. That's the other James Mullinger. That's the one who, the professor in North Carolina, and we just screwed it up."
He's a good guy too. So first, thank you for coming on. I know you have a busy schedule, so we really appreciate you giving us some time in the Matter of Fact studio and Podstarter. So you have a lot on the go. You're on tour right now. You work in a lot of different arenas. I guess from a comedy perspective, just getting right into that because I'm a huge fan of comedy. I'm going to your show tonight. Very
nice.
excited.
Oh, thank you.
So what was your start? What got you into that? What made you think, I want to do this? How'd you begin with that?
I mean, I know that I always wanted to do it in that I was obsessed with comedy growing up as a child. Like, all I did was, watch comedy videos. And again, you would know all the kind of British references of the shows that we were watching, like, not the 9 o'clock news and the young ones, and obviously Monty Python, which I know was obviously also huge in North America. But comedians like Frank Skinner. So I just watched a lot of stand-up, but I definitely didn't think I was ever going to be able to do it. Like I wasn't a popular kid. I wasn't outgoing. I wasn't academic. I wasn't athletic. I was what my mum recently described as a triple bill of failure for them. Because normally when you have a child that's not good at one thing, or indeed not good at two, maybe they'll be athletic if they're not academic. I had none of it going on. So there was no sign that I would do this job. And for many years, I was extremely frustrated by the fact that I hadn't tried it. And actually, it was a trip to the Maritimes, to New Brunswick in 2004, that changed that when I visited a dinner theatre for the first time, having possibly not even heard of such a thing in the UK. And I go into this tiny dinner theatre on Water Street in St. John, New Brunswick, and see these kids and adults and just people from all walks of life performing in this show. And they are just wowing us. And of course, I mean, it's worth pointing out, dinner theatre performers, superheroes. Like, I just have to go up and make people laugh. They have to make people laugh, make people sing. They have to dance. They have to make sure that table 4 has got the pitcher of beer and the wings on time. Like, that's a lot of juggling to do. But really what it boils down to is I saw these people and thought, wow, whatever their lives are like during the day, at night, they are the stars of the stage because they're actually doing it. And I need to I can't be that person that complains that they don't win the lottery and then doesn't buy a ticket. Like, you've got to be in it to win it. So 2005 was the year that I first tried stand-up.
So do you find, like, over that period of time, so if you started in 2005 or in 2024 now, have you found that comedy has evolved and you kind of have to evolve with it, like in terms of the jokes you can make, like times are changing, what you can and can't say? Do you what would you say your style of comedy is, and has it changed over those years?
I mean, for me personally, my comedy has only changed insofar as my life has changed. Mm-hmm. So I've always talked about what's going on in my life. Most of what I talk about, if not all, is true. It's based on true stories, anecdotes, things that have happened. Obviously, in many cases, exaggerated versions of it. But so when in my 20s, it was obviously all about kind of drinking and partying and sex. And then in my 30s, it was about kind of, settling down with a girlfriend, moving into your first flat, then getting married, having a baby. And then for the past 10 years, inevitably, it has been about moving to Atlantic Canada. And I would say that people talk about finding their voice. And I guess the point at which I found my voice was moving here and suddenly having an angle. Because in England, I had no hook. It's another boring white male middle-class guy getting up on stage talking about his girlfriend and boozing. And there was nothing to make me stand out particularly. And there was already plenty of people doing that same thing very well. On the circuits. But when I moved here, it's like, well, not many British comedians have moved to a small town with a population of 10,000 people in New Brunswick. That gives you an angle which is, in theory, also relatable anywhere. So the dream is to be a fish out of water. Our job is to notice things. And what better position to be in than to move from a city of 9 million people to a town of 10,000 and notice things. And then inevitably those small town experiences essentially work anywhere, because everyone has either been to a small town or moved to a small town or moved to a big city, or so I can go to a tiny town in British Columbia that I've never been to before, and those cultural differences and those things I've noticed will also resonate.
So you talk about you're addressing the time of your life. Do we have James Mullinger's 2056 tour is like anecdotes from the seniors' home, or what? You think you're just going to continue down that road?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have no. I can see myself. Seinfeld has this quote once when he was asked kind of why he hadn't moved into more movies and TV when the sitcom ended, and he said, that a comedian had said to him that the reason he was pursuing film was he didn't want to wake up and be performing in Milwaukee on a Tuesday night, and Seinfeld said, well, I do. I want to be, and he, now he is. What is he, 17? He's still performing everywhere he can. And I guess to use more of a local reference, I want to be waking up and performing in Liverpool, Nova Scotia on a Tuesday night when I'm 70. So yeah,
Racing up the wheelchair and in he goes.
Exactly. It was, yeah. Although I think that's about a decade after that. And there were a lot of very sprightly 70-year-olds. I'm sure a lot of the listeners to this wonderful podcast who are in their 70s still out partying in the.
I don't know what a demographic is actually. You friends and family.
Yeah, friends and family. Well, I guess it would. I mean, I guess also we have an older population. I mean, I guess the way to judge it is that if I play a theatre show almost anywhere in Atlantic Canada, half the tickets would be when I get the box office breakdown. Half the tickets are seniors. So I think seniors in Atlantic Canada are living the dream more because of the kind of great lifestyle we have here. That they're living longer and they're out partying in their 60s, 70s, 80s. So yeah. Sign me up for that.
May it continue. One thing I wanted to ask you was kind of about the process itself. Is what I've always found fascinating about comedy is you're out there. It sort of flows so easily. It's of course is designed to make people laugh, to depart from the real world. But like it's a serious business, and for you it's a career. And if you look back at your work with all those years with GQ and let's call it maybe a more journalistic beginning,
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing now is still comedy, a very serious business. So can you talk a bit to that process of how you put a show together? Let's look at like the Beatles, for example. They got up there and effortlessly entertained millions, but we know the torment sometimes that went into writing albums. And I think as a comedian too, and also for people like Alec and I, we were a bit clownish in how we act a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I know for me personally, if I'm not sort of being the clown, people look at me. My wife will do it. Like if I'm back home, my parents will do it. They'll say, James, what's up?
Right.
And I say to my mother, well, just because I'm not tearing off the walls doesn't mean that something's up. Maybe I'm just kind of winding down a bit and I'm relaxing. So the question for you as a comedian is like, can you tell us a little bit about the serious business of what you do behind the scenes? And how do you struggle maybe with that persona that you always have to be funny? You can run a serious business behind that too.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And there's so many layers to it. And the example you give about the fact that, you're known as being the kind of outgoing funny one, and then suddenly when you're not, people are like, what's wrong? It is an interesting dichotomy. I mean, the most stark visual of it is often when, and generally comedians will try and avoid this happening, but it's when you do corporate gigs and they want you to sit at the table, the head table or the CEO's table or the high table or whatever it is, pre-show. And the thing is that no matter who the comedian is, pre-show, they are needing to get into a zone. And And some comedians are very manic, some are very deadpan. But you know, I've read numerous examples of this. Jerry D talks about it in his autobiography. Sebastian Maniscalco, Seinfeld. Pre-show, they want to be focused and trying to get into a certain mindset. So we're not very fun pre-show. We look like, you know, a very dull, boring psychopaths pacing around, speaking to ourselves. I mean, it's
Can you get that on YouTube? Can we see this?
Definitely, yeah.
Behind the scenes.
There is footage. I've seen footage in documentaries of me. Like people are like, "What's your pre-show ritual? You know, are you all doing it?" And I'm like, "Well, one of them is like fiddling with the top of a water bottle in like a very kind of OCD, like I need to touch it with both hands way." So when they ask, "Will you sit at the table?" you kind of want to say, "Well, you're not going to get the comedian at the table. You're going to get someone that's going to be kind of looking at their notes under the table. You know, I'll hang out afterwards. I'm all yours post-show, but pre-show, if you want the best possible show." And the other thing is, of course, that what they're seeing is the real you. So when you leap on the stage and start running around like a madman, they're kind of the illusion's been broken almost. But to answer your question, I mean, yes, it's a serious business behind it. And I would say possibly the grind is even more so when you are in a place like Atlantic Canada where there isn't a built-in industry. Like everything I do here and everything, I'd say for 99% of comedians living here, is we're doing it all ourselves. So the bitter irony is that, you know, you spend years trying to get out of an office job to get on the road and do this job. And now I probably spend way more time behind a computer than I ever did when I had an office job, doing admin, booking flights, booking buses, booking venues, you know. And of course, I mean, it's all a pleasure, and I absolutely adore everything about the job. And it is fun and games. And to answer the question about building new shows, I mean, I build new shows in work in progress shows, which are, you know, phenomenally enjoyable. And again, it's a massive, massive privilege that people are willing to buy tickets to essentially watch me rehearse. And I build these shows as, you know, work in progress. In fact, the poster actually says on it, it might be. Can I say the SHIT?
Oh, you can say it.
Okay, well, yes. Yeah, so
you can say fuck if you want to.
Wow, well, that would be fun.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll save that for Yarkyok. Thank you. But yeah, so the poster says on it, it might be shit. So people buy tickets for these shows knowing that it's going to be hit and miss, knowing it's going to be experimental, and that is incredibly enjoyable to spend a day, you know, making notes and walk out on stage with scraps of paper and going, okay, let's see what works. And those are the shows when, to your earlier point about where you can ascertain if something's, you know, for want of a better phrase, problematic, or how people are going to react to it. Because, of course, the thing with, I mean, arguably nothing's problematic in that laughter is an involuntary response to things. So often people might laugh and then go, ooh, afterwards, but then the laugh's already happened. But I guess on that, like, I don't feel that things are more sensitive now than before. It's funny because the people that say that are the people that are being paid the most to say the most deplorable things, or, you know, for want of a better phrase, deplorable things on the world's biggest streaming networks. You know, it's a fascinating illusion that they've created that you can't say anything anymore while they're being paid $50 million to say those things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think if you watch the last three specials by, I don't know, you know, say Jim Jeffries, Jimmy Carr, Dave Chappelle, Ricky Gervais, you're not going to look at those and go, oh, you can't say anything. They did, and they got paid for it.
Yeah.
But to my mind, I mean, it's not that I go out of my way to not offend, but equally I do. I mean, again, and I guess part of it is also being in a small market, whereby I need and respect, and I'm very grateful for people coming back again and again. I kind of don't want to upset people that have paid to come. I might upset people that watch my stuff online, but generally people that come to see me know what I do.
That's a good point. I've never thought that. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You know, so because if it pops up on your Facebook, and I've seen that, people freaking out about stuff that, you know, jokes of mine that have got, you know, turned up in a reel or on TikTok or YouTube or anywhere else. But generally, if they've paid to see me, they know what they're coming for. And my aim is not to obviously bite the hand that very generously feeds me laughter and love.
Yeah, and one thing you touched on there, just, you know, you don't want to upset your people that have come to see you. We come to pay to see you. And I was at a comedy show recently. It was an open mic downtown Dartmouth. I wasn't up there. My brother did comedy for the first time. Right. But the last guy that went up, and he's a local amateur, but he was really good. He does a lot of these open mics, and he was saying some jokes. They weren't that bad, but then one person got up, made a big deal, and was like, "You're not funny. These are terrible. Why would you say that? I'm leaving." and everyone was like, ooh, like laughing, like get her out of here. But you could tell he was actually like, while he was still making jokes about it, he was a little sad and distraught. Like he was like, oh, like I didn't want someone to leave tonight. Like I'm not trying to offend anybody.
Right.
But he rolled with the punches really well. So I just liked what you said there about you don't want to displease your guests, but you still want to stay true to your material and your comedy.
Yeah.
So speaking of on stage, you're on tour right now. You look like you're about halfway through.
Yeah.
Your Yuck Yucks tonight and tomorrow. You started in Rothesay and then you're finishing off in Kelowna, BC. So I guess my just overall question, what's it like being on tour? And one thing I've always marveled at with comedians and something I can't even picture myself doing is when you have that many shows and you're kind of back to back and you're doing a lot of the same until you're probably adding in new stuff, you know, mentally being able to do that repetition over and over again, like, you know, especially if you're going 3, 4, 5 nights in a row.
Yeah.
Like, what's that like being able to kind of do one night and then put that aside and get in the zone for the next night?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's more out of, I mean, the use of the word repetition is absolutely spot on it's the repetition that makes it feel normal and makes it feel like, and in many ways, of course, the weird thing about being on the road is that the 2 hours that you're on stage in the evening, that's the fun bit. You know, the day of traveling to get there, that's the ball ache. That's the hassle, you know, the waking up, pack up, you know, especially if you are on the road with other people. I mean, in some ways, it is easier when you're on your own because you get a bit, but when there's a group of you, it's like, okay, when are we meeting? When are we in the lobby? When are we getting in the bus? When are we getting to the airport? When are we, all that stuff. So the 2 hours that you're on stage is the joy. And actually, I mean, when you are doing the exact same set every night, that's the kind of easy part. And I guess it never gets boring telling a joke because the reaction is so, and if anything, it's just that thing where you deliver the setup and then you do the first punchline and it gets a huge laugh and you know you've got this other tag that they're going to absolutely love and you're listening to this you know raw and then you're hitting them with the next one. So it never stops being, and you never stop thinking of ways to make it better. But I guess where I create extra stress for myself is that I like to make every single show unique and for that place.
Yeah.
So I've always got time built in to arrive. You know, one of the requests is always, if you are lucky enough to be in a town where your local newspaper still exists, or in some cases more than one, please, can I have the last 3 weeks worth? I want to go to the newspaper. I'll walk around the town. I'll look at flyers for you know missing cats or whatever
Yeah.
it is, right? And I want to basically open with stuff. If I can sit down and talk to someone, I will, and find out things. So, for example, I was in Chester last year, and 2 minutes pretty much before the show was actually supposed to start, someone came into the dressing room telling me about how they'd finally just painted is it called the Pig's Bowl? There's an area anyway. The street had finally got painted, and it actually been painted wrong, and they told me this in 1 minute, and I just knew by walking out on stage and saying it just from the top. And normally you would never open with something unrehearsed, but when it's specific for that place, even if it doesn't land big, you know, it's going to be appreciated. But in this case, you walk out and you go, "What's the deal? I almost didn't make it because the lines have been painted on the road wrong." Immediately you've got them. So I do try and make it harder on myself to make every show feel special. So in the night they go, "Well, that was a great show," but like, how on earth did he know that?
It's like
You
the
know?
smaller the
It
town,
works.
the more appreciative they are of it too. Like,
Right.
I remember when, like with the Great Outdoors Comedy Fest, when it comes to town, and like last year we went to a couple of them, and there was one, and it was Jerry Seinfeld, who was hilarious. He got up there, he didn't make any jokes about how he could have did anywhere. The set he did, but then Bill Burr.
Yes, I was at Bill Burr's.
Bill Burr got
Yeah.
up, and he's making jokes about horses running down Citadel Hill and Dirty Nell, and just like so everyone's like, oh my god, he did his research. So it's definitely.
I agree.
Small town
And it was incredible. And as you say, yeah, Seinfeld essentially could have been anywhere,
Yeah.
right? It's just, it could have been, and you could basically take that set and it's word for word doesn't. But yeah, I mean, Bill Burr must have opened with 20 minutes. That was one of my most enjoyable ever live experiences.
Yeah.
Like, as he said on his podcast, I think the next day, he's like, nothing about that model should work. 12,000 people on a hill in the middle of a downtown.
No cell phones. Is that the one? No cell phones
no
too?
cell phones, yeah.
Yeah.
And boom, it was just, phenomenal. Loved
Yeah,
it.
that was really
It
good.
transitions you from sort of a pre-made show behind the scenes through to that ability to think quickly.
Right.
And I think audiences appreciate that bands go on stage and they just replace one word of a song with the city they're in. And it's
Yes,
easily
yeah.
done because whether you're in Vancouver or you're in Brisbane or you're in Cardiff, off you go and you do that. But to come on, I remember going to see Rich Hall once as a teenager when he was in Newport in Wales, and he did the same thing. He came out and ran off about 15 minutes of really specific things that he wasn't adapting for wherever he was.
Right.
And again, it just sort of blows you away. But I want to take the comedy hat off for a second here. Let's talk about the magazine, the Maritime Edit. So I first discovered this maybe 3-4 years. When did the magazine start? First of all?
Actually, we actually unveiled it. I believe it's this week. It's an anniversary. It's either 7 or 8 years. I think it's 8. Actually, we announced it 7 years ago. This week we announced
a long time.
Yes,
I was late to
long
the
time.
party here, and what I find interesting about it is it's like comedy hat comes off. Journalistic hat, creative hat goes back on. What is that like? Because these are two very different things, and I appreciate there's a team with the magazine, and it's not maybe is it more hands off than the comedy? Tell me about that.
Well, it's an excellent question. I mean, in many ways, it's the weird thing when I meet people, because it's like comedy is in theory my day job / proper job, and the magazine is, for one of a better phrase, it's not so much as a hobby, but it's definitely the second job. For my wife, it's the primary job. She is the the co-founder and the publishing director. It is such a tiny team, and yes, I mean I am writing most of it. We have a senior editor, Jennifer Wood. We have a few contributors. We have an amazing art director called Lindsay Boteur. It is very, very small. And so where the crossover happened, in the early days, one of the things that would really stress me out and I would say became too much was that we really had to maximize time. So, for example, if I was booked to do the Debaters in Charlottetown, that is quite an all-consuming gig, especially on the day of. But we were in a situation where it's like, well, we need to meet with PEI Tourism, Charlottetown Tourism, this law firm that might advertise. So I would be kind of arriving the night before and spending a day in meetings and getting back to the hotel. And not so we after a couple of years of that, thankfully we've been able to separate it, because it didn't help either thing. So now it's very much like, I mean, I might do some writing during the day when I have a show that night, but generally it's like focus on each thing separately. But yes, I mean, it is two completely different mindsets, and it's weird, obviously, as you pointed out, and in the Atlantic Canada, it is small, so there's lots of crossovers. Like, I mean, one example being, you go into a meeting. Stuart McKelvey were very kindly an advertiser from the first issue. You go in for a meeting about the mag to kind of secure advertising for the next year and to catch up. And then, you kind of get chatting. They're like, oh, actually, we have a conference coming up and we need a keynote speaker. Would you do that? But really, the crossover isn't that strange in that, my stage show is celebrating the joys of Atlantic Canada and indeed Canada as a whole, and celebrating it as, a new-ish immigrant and new Canadian. And really the magazine is the same thing. It's just wanting to highlight. And it's one of the things that I loved so much when I first heard your podcast, was the fact that you wanted to highlight and showcase things that are happening in Halifax that people don't know about. And this is one of again, there was something you said in your intro, which was very, very kind, but definitely not true, in that you said that everyone knows me. And the funny thing in this region is there's no such thing as something being well known. Like there are things, for example, like I meet someone. I mean, I think when we first started the magazine, we were trying to decide what to put on the cover of the first issue. And we were like, what's the thing in Atlantic Canada that is kind of known globally? And it was like, okay, Fogo Island Inn. And we thought, we can't do that. Everyone knows Fogo Island Inn. Like, it's just a bit obvious. We did it. The amount of people and people in the demographic that could afford it, that were coming up to us and going, what's that place? Never heard of it.
Wow. Okay,
and
unexpected.
That has continued to this day. When we had Oceanstone Resorts on the cover, we thought everyone knows Oceanstone. So many people coming up to us, inviting to us, saying they've never heard of it. Similarly, when Muir opened, when the Simon Store opened, and as I'm sure you have found, it's really interesting how, partly it's, but not that we have tunnel vision here, but everyone's busy, so you can't always consume everything. Also, the way the media landscape has changed, it's not like a big city where, how often do you hear this? Like I bet on the Monday morning after Great Outdoors, if you said to someone, I went to see Bill Burr and Seinfeld at the weekend, I bet there was tons of people that went, oh, I had no idea that happened.
I did that with
Yeah,
Prince.
that happened last year.
Colleagues came in and said we went to see
It
Prince.
happens all the time.
Oh, yeah. I went back in. Everybody said it was a wonderful show. And I said, Prince? Charles? Or Prince? And
Yeah.
they said, no, Prince. I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't even know it was there.
Right.
And I was sat in my house 8 minutes away.
Yes.
I'm just a dummy, though. I thought, this is the way it is. We always look outside. And what we learned with the podcast, too, is so many people here are looking outside of Atlantic Canada. What we wanted to do was reel people back in and say, hey, let's look on our doorstep. And we've said this to a number of our guests, but during the pandemic, my wife and I decided she's from here, I'm not originally, we're really going to get to know Atlantic Canada. We started driving 8 minutes and taking staycations in downtown Halifax.
Right.
Instead of going back to the UK or going down south or traveling around the US. And we really fell in love during that period with everything that was there that we'd ignored.
Right.
So is that an attempt for the magazine too, to say that this is where you live?
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. It's basically saying explore what's on your doorstep. The pandemic was obviously terrible for many reasons, but I mean, business-wise for us, it suddenly meant, because of the Atlantic bubble, it meant that organizations, tourism bodies, and businesses that are in the region that in the past have, and this is something that I think we are guilty of here, there's sometimes an internal snobbery here, where a lot of the people that preach the whole support local, keep it in Halifax, keep it in the Maritimes, keep it in Atlantic Canada, are the people who are then, booking, for example, ads in Toronto-based or using Toronto-based companies to book billboards, or supporting artists outside the region, or musicians or performers. A lot of the time, the people that talk about support local are the people that don't do it, because there is this, and I've come across this internal snobbery where people say it, but then deep down what they think is, well, if you're here, you can't be as good as what's out there. And that is one of the things, the things that I think we've all, that I think we're slowly overcoming.
Yeah.
And we've kind of, pushed hard to convey that it doesn't have to be like that. And I think that was the great thing about the Atlantic bubble, was people actually being forced to explore and suddenly going, oh, wow, I had no idea that we had this world-class, restaurant, spa, resort, whatever it be, on our doorstep.
Oh, we live in a great place. Alec knows he's from here.
100%.
He's never left. There's the testament.
Good on
I
you.
was going to say, I'm the only guy here, not named James, without an accent, and just regular Alec, and who recently found out I pronounced yolk wrong my whole life. Jenna gave it to me
In the
last
middle of
night.
an egg?
Yeah, yolk.
How do you say yolk?
Yolk.
You from Sweden?
I don't know. I said yolk, and she said, oh, the L is silent. And then I Googled a YouTube video of a guy. It's just a guy standing there pronouncing yolk, but I couldn't figure it
Yolk,
out.
a bit of an idiot, I tell you that.
But there's plenty of ways to get around it, though, because we can always argue different accents. And of course, I mean, when I first got him, people were offering me a Donair, and I'm like, don't you mean a Donna?
Oh, Donna Kebab,
Donna.
yeah.
And they're like,
That's a
no,
lady here.
Donna.
Donna lives in number 42, doesn't she?
Yeah. And the other one is Calais in France, and in Maine, it's Calais. And it's just these weird pronounce differences. Same word, different pronunciation.
Funny, when you actually Google, like you Google how to pronounce yolk, there's like a little ticker that goes American, English, so you hear how each person...
American, wrong. Originated from British English, right. That's all you need to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned, so you do some corporate events too, which my dad, Uber driver Todd, he's a bit of a podcast legend on here. It's a funny story. Basically, he doesn't know how to use the Uber app, and he went to book an Uber after like a 1 a.m. flight, and instead of booking the Uber, he accidentally signed up to be an Uber driver. They called him and everything and said, congratulations, welcome.
So we plug him every show. He's never
every show we
actually
bring it
gone
up.
on an Uber shift. But
he needs to. That's a show.
Okay.
He's like, they're asking you for my ID.
You would
and everything.
voice some kind of radio ad for him, or
Absolutely done. Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, literally, we've got the mics here.
Yeah,
can't
we always mention him.
Todd. We got to get
what's
Todd
his
on the
name?
podcast too. Todd.
Todd, okay, and he's from Halifax. Uber Todd, for all your Ubering needs, any time of day or night. If he doesn't answer, just keep ringing and ringing and ringing. And his address is, insert address here, and turn up. And if an angry lady answers the door, just barge in and drag Todd out of bed. Bundle him in the vehicle and he will take you to your destination. It is all part of the Uber Todd experience. Uber Todd. He'll make you happy, even when you don't think you need it.
Oh, I love it. There we go.
Amazing.
So there is no reason to not jump behind that wheel now, Todd.
Todd's gonna love that one.
Come on
My
over,
mom's gonna love
Todd.
that too.
He's got to pay the Mullinger invoice though.
Where was I going?
5 stars, Uber Todd. 5 stars.
Uber driver Todd.
Corporate events.
Corporate event. He saw you at a corporate event. And
Oh.
I told him you were coming. It was like a wastewater management
Oh, no.
event.
Oh, my goodness. That in St. John?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
That's the one.
Uber Todd, if you're listening, I am wearing the socks that I
Whoa.
was given at that wastewater
so he
conference.
Wow. This was meant to be.
It was meant to be. I was given these socks by my friend Barb Crawford, who works for who's on the board for this event, and they very kindly invited me to speak and had a wonderful time. What was the question? Yeah.
So the question
And
was...
they gave me these socks, and I had a
Yeah.
really great gig that night. And now I have it pegged as like lucky socks. And I told them, and this lovely lady Amy, who works for the water in St. John, sent me tons of the socks. This is my last pair.
Oh.
Wastewater finally did something useful.
They're doing it.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. It's on camera now.
So I can't remember. Uber Todd was there.
Yes. So that he recognized your name. He saw you. So my question was going to be, how do you find, like, it's a different audience than as opposed to like on tour, people are paying to go see comedy.
Very.
At a corporate event, they're there for the corporate event, and the event has hired a comedian. How do you find working in an audience in that way? Is it a bit different? You have to adjust your material sometimes.
Totally. I mean, there's a few different facets to it. I mean, one is obviously whenever you're doing a show where, for want of a better phrase, you're not the star, i.e., you're not the reason they're there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole different kind of body language and approach, and not that it's gross, hugely different. But for example, when I walk out on stage at whether it's the Neptune Theatre or Imperial Theatre in St. John, and your name's up on the screen in lights, and there's 500,000 people there waiting for you. There's a bit of a just confidence. There's and you're exuding a bit more showmanship, should we say?
Yeah.
Because they're there to see you, and they know you. When you walk out on stage at a conference, and indeed this same theory does apply also to if I'm playing a comedy club, for example, out west, and it's just a comedy. It's not a theatre. They're there for Yuck Yucks in Edmonton. They're not there for James Mullinger. You walk out with a bit more humility, should we say? And it's all about that kind of body language in life. It's I guess the same as, and I often use this as an example in keynotes, where when you walk into a pitch meeting or a job interview or any type of business meeting, if you walk in and they've called you and begged you to come in, they want you for the thing. You walk in there with a slightly different attitude, and
Our world, we do that, yeah.
right. And yeah, if you're begging to get through the door and they finally let you in, you walk in with you're exuding something very different. And it's not that one is egotistical and one isn't. It is just you're exuding different body language. So there's an element of that. I take the corporate gig. I mean, the corporate gig thing is the thing that obviously, is basically my bread and butter. I love doing them. I take huge pride in them. I take them very seriously. They obviously pay well, but they do also involve a lot of work. And there are some comedians that I'm sure will take the booking and rock up and go, what's this then? What's this about wastewater? I kind of, through experience and through obviously just, business savvy and knowing that when wanting to do a good job, I would say, for example, on that one being an example, I would have maybe had 4 or 5 or possibly 6 meetings, Zoom or Teams meetings, discussing every single detail of the conference, what they were doing all day. Of course, the other tricky thing is, of course, you walk into a comedy club, it's set up for comedy.
Yeah.
Invariably, these soulless function rooms in hotels are not set up for
a big
it.
black curtain behind the stage,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
100 tables with 12 people sat at them.
Yeah, and
with bread rolls.
If you're lucky, yeah. And it's funny when there's a people often ask about performers' riders, and it's like my rider is almost like you could read it as also as a list of terrible things that have happened, because on my rider it says things like seats facing stage, and people are like, well, why have you got that on there? I'm like, well, why do you think? Because multiple times I've turned up and and similarly, like, you don't want the room bright, you want the stage lit, but you want the audience dark. So all those little details. So it's a ton of work. It's a ton more work trying to get it. And similarly with the wastewater thing, it was like, okay, so where are they all from? So they're all from Atlantic Canada. What are some things that everyone knows? Like, for example, and so what did they all go to the St. John Ale House on Tuesday night?
Yeah.
What are some kind of common grounds? So it is different. And of course, you also are following a brief often where it's like, you can't, for example, use swear words. In some cases, there's other long lists of things you can't say. I mean, I don't do anything offensive. And then there's other times where you can kind of inadvertently say something
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a different ball game. But I do love doing them, and unlike in England where. And you would know, like, you know, like, remember what it was like, but the drinking culture in England is so kind of out of control that when you
hooligans,
hooligans. You go to any, it could be the fanciest sounding corporate company, and you turn up, they are hammered, just like absolute shit faced. To your point, throwing bread rolls, behaving deplorably. Generally, people in Canada aren't behaving like that at corporate events. That kind of work isn't that kind of behavior isn't tolerated in the workplace. So the kind of stereotype of corporate gigs being a nightmare isn't the case. Like, and I've had some absolutely lovely ones. And the other thing is, of course, you have to go up there prepared for the fact that the response is going to be possibly slightly muted. You know, you're not going to get the laughter that you're going to get from a Friday night at Yucks or a theatre full of people that paid to see you. But and then the trick to that is to not get thrown by it, because I've seen, again, plenty of performers get up there and then act all pissy because they haven't got this kind of, you know, round of applause on every joke, and then they start blaming the audience. That's not helpful. So there's tons to think about, but then I guess there is at every show. But I do a lot of them, and I do work really hard to make them special.
That's awesome. We had one a few years ago. I can't imagine what was going through this guy's head. It was a comedian from PEI. Came to our conferences. There's 20 of us. You weren't there.
I was supposed to be there, but I ended up in hospital.
Right. Oh, sorry to hear that.
I was lying in a hospital. Oh, it was nothing. It
wasn't sore ribs from the comedian.
Literally nothing. No, I wish it was. They thought I had a carotid artery tear.
I remember that.
Just a wimp.
Yeah.
I was just aware. I just strained my neck.
You missed the comedian.
48 hours later, sat in the waiting room. They went, just a.
Better to be safe than sorry, I say.
No, I remember he came in. There was only 20 of it, and it was a boardroom, so he didn't have much to work with. But we were laughing. Like he's from PEI, so he did his research on our company, which was awesome. And
was it Patrick Ledwell?
It might have been.
Right, because
and he had a slideshow too. He was doing stuff on the screen.
He's great.
Yeah, he was really good.
And he would strike me as someone who does exactly that. And funny enough, I had a similar one when it was from a finance group, maybe 2 years ago. So we were just coming out of COVID, and someone, the boss had organized this for their kind of, high roller clients, basically. And there was supposed to be about 50 of them, and then she'd organized this lunch, and they basically all had to shoot off. So it ended up being about 4, maybe 5 people, including the booker, in like a tiny little room in a Amsterdam inn around. But the trick is you make it work.
Yeah.
So I didn't need a mic, obviously. I just stood there and did the entire act able to give eye contact to everyone at all times. And, it paid a ridiculous amount of money for a gig to 5 people. But the trick is to go for it. And Patrick is someone who has that reputation as being a staunch professional, very funny, puts the hours and work in. And again, I know lots of comedians that would walk in there and go, this is a nightmare. There's only 20 people. There's only 5 people. It's like, no, every single gig deserves. And that's one of my pet hates is performers of anyone. Or indeed, this kind of applies to almost any field, whether it's catering or entertainment or whatever it is. Like, if the audience deserves the best you can give them, always. And I've never understood the thing where so I have scenarios where tech doesn't work. There's frustrations. I went to Niagara last year to do one from actually I won't say who it was for. I went to Niagara to do a corporate gig, and basically they completely ignored the rider. They obviously thought, well, we'll spend on this and this, but we're going to ignore that, and the stage is going to be wobbly, and there's going to be no lights, so it's going to be bright in the room, and the mic's going to be poppy and dodgy and cheap, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you have all these frustrations, and you're trying on the day saying, please, is there anything we can do, like to whatever it anyway. Ultimately, when it's showtime, you just go out and do the absolute best you can and do it. You don't go up there and act all pissy because it's not there. It's no one in the room other than the one booker who made that decision. It's no one else's fault.
Yeah.
That's different to me. I tend to just, when things go wrong, the primary goal is don't take the blame.
Well, yes.
Who do I hang this on? Who do I hang this on? That's how I operate.
Well, yeah. Well, and I would do that were it possible. The unfortunate thing in comedy is, it's automatically your fault, because no one when you're bombing because of all these extenuating circumstances, not a single person in the room is thinking, why did Janet in HR scrimp on the stage lights? Because that's the other thing, is that all these little things, like if the stage is lit and the audience is in not darkness but not bright, 99% of the time, the gig is going to go fantastically well. And then, I mean, the other way around, it's, the odds, you might still have an okay gig, but generally it's not going to go as well. But you can't explain that to someone. You can't say, because when the jokes aren't landing, no one can imagine them going well. They just think you're not funny. And that's actually interesting. I have had that actually, where people have come and see me twice, and it's essentially, for the most part, it might be the same material. And then the first time they see it, it's just like absolute barnstorm, and the next one they see is a complete death. And there's no difference in the material. There's just other circumstances at play, some of which could be me, and I'm not saying it's not, but it's really interesting, because when something's going well, when a comedy gig's going well, and you're witnessing it, you can't imagine it going badly. You're like, this is amazing. And then when it's going badly, it's just words. It's not comedy. It's just words, and you can't imagine it going well. So it's
well, we'll let you know as well when Janet from HR emails us.
Thank you. Yes, please do.
So
I think she works for Uber Todd.
she's the administrative assistant.
His
She's lacking in the promotional department, which is why
he's the only Uber driver with his own assistant.
She's fielding the call, all the 1-star reviews that say he really seems like he didn't want to be there.
He just wants to go home.
Just wanted to take a cab.
He's begging to.
So you're involved with some other stuff. I'm a big TV and film buff, and I follow you on Instagram, and I noticed you're working on a short film,
yes,
The Peninsula, that is it, correct me if I'm wrong, written by your son?
Exactly. And my son, he's 13 now. He started writing it when he was 11. Wow. It is a short film, and it was a COVID project. I'm not, as I mentioned, I'm still not very academic or athletic, and I'm not sporting minded. I mean, I'm trying to now learned how to play soccer because one of my sons is in soccer. The other one, football is obviously the correct word. I can't skate, so I can't help.
Alec.
Yeah. And so he had this idea for a film, and I said, look, I can't help with sports, I can't help with homework, but everyone's in lockdown. All the filmmakers I know are grounded right now. They can't fly. Mm-hmm. So you write a script, I'll help you get it made. And so he wrote a script based and set on the Kingston Peninsula, which is an absolutely beautiful part in New Brunswick. And we did it. We made it happen. And we were lucky enough to have all our kind of favorite filmmakers there, ready and waiting to make it happen. And it's done, and hopefully hitting the Atlantic Film Festival.
That's what I was going to say. You're going to go to Film Fest?
Yeah, so we're taking lots of festivals this summer. I've entered it into the Atlantic Film Fest. So yeah, we will keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully Hunter, my 13-year-old, can be a guest on your podcast.
Oh yeah, we'll do that.
That's no, I know. I just wanted to ask. I thought that was so cool that he wrote it, and then
it was
following the updates there.
Well, it was really fun, because of course he had done school acting, but not much else. But then we cast my father-in-law, who's never acted or indeed had any interest in acting, which is sometimes the better option, because they don't want to be there, and the character is, he's not a grumpy old man, but the character's a grumpy old man, and he was grumpy being forced to do something he didn't want to do. So sometimes it's easier to actually kind of entice a good performance out of someone that really doesn't want to do it than it is someone that really wants to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reluctant actor.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's like the Ken Loach approach. Yeah.
So obviously we've seen a lot of your work out there. We've seen clips from Bread Out of Water and a number of other projects that you are involved in. What is on for you between now and the end of the year? What can we look forward to? And maybe, what do you want to plug? You've earned the right to plug.
Yes.
Well, I guess, the magazine, it's not easy being in the print media business in 2024. It wasn't easy. I started GQ in 2000. It wasn't easy then either. So I would just say to people, maritimeedit.com. It's a magazine literally for everyone in Atlantic Canada. We also do have readers and subscribers across the country. The aim of the magazine was always very much to say, well, okay, we've got lots of magazines in Canada. They all claim to be national. They're not national. They stop at Quebec. Nothing that basically happens on this side makes it into those publications.
Coast-to-coast tour bands,
right?
Vancouver to Quebec City.
You're exactly right. And similarly, you look at like the masthead of any big national magazine that is, let's face it, government funded by our tax dollars as much as anywhere else, and they will have a correspondent in every province apart from the 4 on the east. So our magazine is a national magazine that just happens to focus and swing more to the east. And so it's not that it is simply an anti-Canadian magazine. It's a Canadian magazine that happens to primarily have 98%.
Take that, Canada.
Exactly. So if anyone has an interest in that, my first book, Brit Happens, came out last year, which is a memoir about growing up in a small town. moving to a new country, starting out in comedy, and I'm currently writing a second book about being diagnosed with ADHD age 45.
Wow. Okay. Well, we look forward to all of that. And you are unmissable online. It's like you turn a corner. Oh, there's James Mullinger. But where can we find you? We don't have to find you. You find us. But where can people find you?
And I do apologize for that. I apologize for being everywhere. It's one of those things where, again, and you guys know this, trying to do what we all do in a smaller place where there isn't a built-in system for promoting oneself or promoting one's business. We have to do what feels organic and what feels right. So jamesmullinger.com, and my handle for most of my social medias is at James Mullinger. And if people do follow me, I promise not to post quite as much.
Well, I think we wish we had the platform you did, because people look at us and they go, "Oh shit, real estate guys." We just hit that. We hit that hesitation right away.
Well, so much respect for what you guys do, and let's face it. I mean, the number one thing that this region is proud of right now is the population growth that has occurred, somewhat thanks to COVID, but also thanks to the fact that Nova Scotia is absolutely killing it. And I think I mentioned to you in an email, 8 years ago or so, we did a feature saying that, when people were complaining about construction in Halifax, and we were like, stop complaining. No one complains they do complain in Paris and London about construction, but they get the benefits from it. So it was like, sit tight, wait, and sure enough, it's all come to fruition. And I get that there are other problems at play, but ultimately, we all wanted people to come here, and they're coming. And kudos to you guys for finding places for all these immigrants like us that fell in love with this place and its people.
Proud immigrant too. Sorry, Alec.
Well,
No, not me. I'm born and raised.
You just got to move somewhere else, and you can.
I gotta go somewhere.
Well, if you need an Uber driver, I can recommend someone.
You know somebody. We'll get him on at some point. Anyways, that's the time we have. Thank you so much, James, for coming on. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on our podcast. I'm very much looking. My fiance and I are going to your show tonight at Yuck Yuck.
happy.
Very much looking forward to that. Should be a great time.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Matter of Facts podcast.
But you can get more of us. You can subscribe on any good podcast provider. You can follow us on Instagram at Matter of Facts Podcast. And for all that great feedback and abuse, you can send it by email to halifaxpodcast@gmail.com.
And of course, you can always find James Collins and I on the internet.
Please do get in touch, and we look forward to seeing you next time.